Welcome back to our anime show. I'm a Green Queen.
And I'm Bingemonster.
Today we are going to talk about Blue Lock. Blue Lock season 2 is airing week to week. We were really, really big fans of season 1. I mean, I feel like we really talked about it every week. We couldn't stop talking about it. We even had a whole episode with, our friend Jasmine who came on and we talked about Blue Lock. So we are big fans of Blue Lock, and season 2 had so much hype around it, just coming off like a super successful, I don't know, but like a successful movie that went out in theaters and so forth. I'm sure everyone liked it. I mean, I had interesting feelings on it. Anyway, but we're going to talk about season 2 so far. We're 4 episodes in. We've been seeing some sort of, from the community, like really favorable opinions on how this season is going. And we'll kind of get into the why and so forth. So I guess I'm gonna just go ahead and toss it over to you. Like, season 2 was so hyped and had mile high expectations. Like, why do you think that was a thing?
Yeah, I think there's several reasons why fans are, I think, super passionate about what they're seeing here, and why we're seeing, I think, almost a viral response to some of the quality of the animation that we're seeing here in season 2. I think first and foremost, like you said, Blue Lock season 1 was a massive success, and many different ways can you measure that. The first of which is that it was the highest selling manga of 2023, beating out every other title. To your point, they just had a film that performed pretty well in the box office, even as early as this year. The movie that was focused around Nagi, which you hilariously had some strong feedback for. If people want to go back a couple episodes, you can see what you and your partner thought about that. But it was number 2 in the box office so far this year in 2024. It was number 11 behind some like incredibly popular names though, right? Like Haikyuu is in there and so forth. So that, like, for a side character, I don't think that's bad. Quite frankly.
It's not.
I think beyond that, within Japan though, there's a lot of hype around the sport. The Japanese national team is playing exceptionally well. They played really well in the World Cup. We talked about it on this podcast that there was that running joke for a while after they beat Spain. The Blue Lock was real. Like it went beyond the border of fandom enjoying an anime. They brought it into the real world, and it started, a massive international campaign, which resulted in Thailand announcing a project called Blue Lock of their own for the future development of their squad for international play. So I think it changed the norm of like what's possible with sports anime. It brought it back to the forefront of people's minds, and it took advantage of like a trope as old as time, which is like that tournament arc style, storytelling that everybody really loves in anime, and put it all together in sports anime, like right out of the get in a very exciting way. So I think there are a lot of reasons it was successful. On top of that, it just happens to be fantastic. I didn't mention that, but yeah, like it's just really good. It was a really good first season. So that's kind of my take on why I think season 2 started already with a massive fan base. I think international fan base with really high expectations, because season 1 was so good and it set such a high bar, right? So yeah. I mean, I'm just curious. Leading up to this, I know that we hinted about this a little bit in the previous episode that we recorded. That there were folks who were complaining about the animation. But also, to your point, I think you mentioned this last week. Sometimes those things happen in kind of like fan silos, and so either you see it or you really don't, right? And I'm just curious, like, to what extent had you been noticing negativity surrounding season 2? You're just curious.
It definitely, I mean, like we were coupling this with the conversation about Uzumaki. Uzumaki had like a railroad runaway train of hate um
Yeah,
surrounding the animation. Blue Lock, I was starting to notice some videos of folks, just being like a little disappointed. Like I haven't seen like a full-on freight train running in the way that I did with Uzumaki, but online I've just started to like understand some speculation and again, like I really posed the question. I'm like, am I hearing more and more speculation because someone put out that opinion and now someone else read it and now we all kind of are picking up on like the quality of the animation, which I have a lot of thoughts about this too, but like, is the quality of the animation gone down from season one, so forth? We'll get into why, or has it, or whatever. But to answer your question, yes, but I don't think to the same extent that when we were talking about Uzumaki in this conversation. Like, I don't think I'm understanding the whole community being like, Blue Lock stinks now. They tanked this. I don't think that's the general feeling, but the general feeling is like we've seen a little bit of a decline and we're not as excited about visually what we're seeing as we were in season one.
yeah. I think one of the things that I've seen pretty consistently is that people are kind of relating the quality of the animation to almost a PowerPoint presentation like
Mm.
style, where there's a tremendous amount of detail maybe going into a single frame that is really like emphasized and kind of floats in its
Yeah.
movement. And I've seen that, you know, a couple of times people are, I mean, it's the anime community. People can tend to be pretty cruel and pretty ruthless, but I have noticed on either it was on Twitter or on TikTok, there would be little stilled screenshots where you have like a character's face going this way, and then on the top left corner, you still see like like a small little bit of their face, so it's almost like their face is there in the frame twice. Um,
Oh,
and that was going viral. I think people are like I could do this animation, which is like whatever. It's the internet. People can say what they want. Right?
yeah.
Like I like yeah, okay. Like I don't know. Like I don't know what to
You
say
can.
about that. Right? You can be a hero too. But yeah, I think it was kind of mounting. And I think one of the other things that's really unfortunate too is that people have obviously read a lot of the manga. I mean, as I said, it's the highest selling manga of 2023. There's a lot of people who already know what's coming. So there's a lot of people saying like,
Hmm.
"Hey, don't worry. They probably saved their budget for what's coming up really, really soon." Which is
Hmm.
it's not without precedent that studios will sometimes do that. But
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Like yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say we see that all the time. Like we've
Yeah,
seen that in so many anime that we enjoy and we watch it and we enjoy it, and then a scene will happen and we'll go, so that's where the budget was.
right.
That's where the whole budget went to like this
Right.
sequence or what have you. Like we see that all the time.
Totally. Yeah, one thing that we don't see all the time is that, someone from the animation team of one of those anime come out and I don't want to say like apologize, but definitely try to like defend the situation from their point of view and um
Yeah.
tell their side of the story as to why or yeah, as to why likely the backlash is justifiable and kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And
Hmm.
interestingly, that happened here, right? So we had an animator from Latin America. Gosh, I believe, was he from Chile? From Chile, I think he is Chilean, if I remember correctly.
I don't
Um,
know.
but no, nonetheless, somewhere in South America, clearly he's a subcontractor animator for a studio in Japan, which is really interesting and also kind of exciting to know that like there's a global network here that they're definitely doing what they can to take advantage of, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get the job done. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately had a pretty, I don't know if it was shocking, because there are some things that he mentions there that we're pretty aware of, but maybe we could talk a little
Yeah,
bit about what he said and how that fits into the picture. Maybe you want to summarize it a little bit, and then we can talk about
totally. So, when we're looking at this quote here from, yes, Martin, which was an animator that worked in the Blue Lock team, they're explaining like, oh, I was editing like all of these shots and, I was working on episode one at the beginning, of one, two to five, and there were a lot of shots that from the quote, and this was a translated quote, so understanding that there might be some context that potentially we're missing, but they're basically saying that there were many of like my scenes that I made that didn't make it to the final version. Like there were so many shots and pieces of the animation that were cut from the final version for some reason. And as a result of that, this person even signed off. They were like, I don't think I'm going to work on any more episodes. And, they take all of this as a testament to the result of the production committee of certain animes taking projects simply about the money and not about the collaboration and the condition of their workers, which again, that's like something that we see constantly and hear about constantly. Um, I wouldn't say that this is completely, how do I say it? Like, I wouldn't say that this only happens in animation in Japan. This is definitely like more of an artistic issue, I think, globally, but we definitely see it in animation in Japan and so forth of just like, no, like pump it out, like get these shows out there, and our animators and I'm sure our storyboarders and everybody working on these projects is like absolutely worked to the bone for like definitely not overtime or like not the correct compensation, you know. And it's really a shame. I mean, we've been down this path before. We've talked about these same things before. And I think that knowing this and having watched Blue Lock up until this time, I'm shocked. I'm like kind of surprised. Like, why are we cutting, certain things to make it like this to, the point of everybody talking like this kind of slideshow effect, as opposed to like having a little bit more fluid action, is what I'm guessing. So yeah, but essentially they were cutting scenes or cutting frames from the final production.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, right? Even with a title as big as Blue Lock, that they're kind of, the animation team is kind of falling victim to some of these challenges, just as you've highlighted, right? With these really tight deadlines that are probably impossible to meet, and it's unfortunate that clearly, probably a very talented animator was like forced to quit just because the situation was so bad. It's just unfortunate all around, and I think it's a testament though to the fact that artists like want to put out good work, right? Like at the end of the
Hmm.
day, they want to put out good work, and this is also a unique situation in that like clearly he did do a lot. It just, due to budget and time constraint to even just review all that work, like 1/22 second. I don't even know how to do that math. It's so early in the morning. Like 1/22 of what he did made the final cut, right? And so like I mean
Yes.
I can imagine creating 22 dimensions of a project or a work product, only like one of which is put forward. Like again, I'm not articulating that well, but like you get my point.
But
Like it would be super demoralizing.
that concept feels so corporate in a way where I'm like, ooh, we're like, 'cause I can understand if like in a corporate setting we're bringing a bunch of ideas and like you worked all this time on a pitch and like maybe it doesn't have whatever. Like
Right, right,
that's such a common practice there, but when we're
right.
talking about art and stuff, it's really hard as an
Of
artist, it's
course.
really hard to experience that and know that the product at the end is just literally going to be missing holes. It's
Right,
going to be missing things.
right. And I look at the animation, and like let's just jump right into this, right? Like my first take on this is it's not as bad as people are saying. I see the PowerPoint like moments. I see them. I think maybe for people in Japan, maybe it's a little harder to watch than for us. But like people have to read the subtitles and play catch up, quite frankly. And I think it aligns well with those moments and gives us a chance to like feel like we really know what's going on. It's not so distracting, and quite frankly, season one had issues like this too. There were plenty of times, especially when they had that point of view, kind of that eagle eye point of view, when they're looking at the like over all the characters, and you could see them all running, and it looked like, like a 1990s foosball kind of a situation where like people were
Yes.
moving like really slow. Like there were plenty of problems very similar to what I feel like people are articulating in season one. Now, granted, like, sure, there are a couple of moments here or there that are questionable, but like I said, like, for me, they don't take me out of it. They didn't take me out of it in season one. They're not taking it out of it for me in season two. I don't know. Like, like, do you agree with this, or do you feel like it is marginally worse? Like, I don't know. I feel like I recall it being just as bad in season one. I
Call
don't
it
know.
being kind of similar. Like I can understand, think that there were more. I can understand where we are looking for the story to really progress when we're playing soccer. You know,
Sure.
I can understand where we want to see more when we're now playing soccer. Okay, we're not like just analyzing absolutely everybody. Like I can see where people are wanting more, but one of my takes on this was it's funny enough in one of the games I play, Honkai Star Rail, there's a lot of scenes that are very poignant that are just happening over like a really beautiful picture, but the
Mm-hmm.
vocal quality of the voice actors like paint the and they bring me to tears and they're so good. And so I think, while we want to critique the animation, the voice actors are filling in the gaps. Like they're phenomenal. They're doing so well. And I watched some of the episodes in English dub and I watched some of the episodes in Japanese sub, obviously. Both casts are really, really good. Like I'm not watching this feeling completely engaged. Like
Yeah.
I would like to see more movement, sure. But like the story of what our characters are going through. And something that I liked that they were doing in season one is how they would take that step back and they're showing the puzzle pieces and they're showing like the outer worldly way that we can be looking at this situation. I liked those elements. So I can understand like, oh, we're having like, yeah, the two characters phase in and then there's just like star glitter around them or something, but it's just them and the voiceover. I get how that's not as engaging as like seeing the characters say that, but I'm not missing. I loved it. I watched all four back to back and I like love it. So and maybe it's just me. Like I don't feel the same things that people are saying. I'm sorry that you can maybe hear that cat meowing in the
No, no, it's
Hold on.
okay. I feel like also the amount of CG that's used in this, at least from my take is, and from my perspective, is just the right amount. I think you often see it when there's just like one foot sticking out, and like maybe that's where like right when they're about to start their run, and I don't know. It's obviously noticeable stark difference between that and the very like 2D animation that you see in other scenes, and I'm okay with it. Like I think at this point it's gotten good enough where it really doesn't pull you out. Like sure you notice it, but it happens so quickly. I think people are a little bit spoiled, just a little bit, especially when you look at like what Demon Slayer was able to pull
Oh,
off, particularly in the past season, right? I think Demon Slayer in the most recent season had some absolutely incredible animation. And you're also looking at other shows that Toei is producing. Like I said a couple weeks ago, like One Piece is absolutely knocking out of the park, and Bleach also looks fantastic. So I think people are a little spoiled in seeing these like really high budget titles from these massive studios that have lots and lots of resources putting out things, and they're just expecting almost feature film like quality even with something like this, and I just don't know how realistic that really is.
Mm-hmm.
especially when you think about just the constraints that we've already highlighted, even on this episode, that are a
Yeah.
constant in terms of like what plagues the anime industry as a whole. So yeah, I think people are just a little bit just a little bit spoiled. That's kind of my what I was trying to allude to here.
Yeah, I think I have to echo everything that you were saying. And like honestly, like something I would like to say to the fans is like, you're still getting the story. Like don't play into the hive mind. Do not play into the hive mind. Sit down, enjoy the show, like hear what they're saying. Like there's a lot more at play in these kinds of things. However, I appreciate that we're speaking up, but I think like we should be speaking up about the actual issue of like, hey, everyone's being overworked, so you're not giving us the product that these people want
Right.
to be giving us. Like I think that is actually the issue here, and it's not just the animation stinks, you know?
And it's not like we're saying that's our fault, right? Like I think people will probably listen to this and go like, "Well, how are you going to blame me for being like it's not my fault." Like it's like technically consumer demand definitely was a huge factor here, right? People love this,
Mm.
we can make money from this, let's milk it, let's do as much as we can as quickly as possible. But you have to understand like that we're getting this season the same year as a film, right? Like there's
Yeah.
already so much that is like probably going into both of this and all I'm trying to say is like I think what you just said is so important. Like where should your frustration be focused? Where should it be pointed to? And it shouldn't be the animation staff. It should be the industry. I think that's like really important because I can imagine us putting this episode out and people going like this is a dumb take. Like we have a right to our opinion. Look, here are examples of
Mm.
where it's not super polished. It's like, okay, dude, we're not acknowledging that there are moments, right? But there's a bigger problem here. There's a larger problem here. That's exactly what you're saying. And that's our episode. With that, I've been a binge monster.
And I'm a green queen.
Thanks so much.